Hey guys, it is me, the former film student, today with episode 27 of my 31 Nights, 31 Frights series, the series where I talk about a different horror film every day of October, all the way from the 1st to the 31st. We only have a couple movies left to talk about, and today I want to talk about one that I've actually only seen for the first time recently, and it's one that you guys may never have heard of because I didn't hear about it until recently either, and that is The Signal.
Lewis got it. Fucking snapped. I couldn't get any sense into him. I got his bat, knocked him out. I taped him up so he couldn't hurt anybody else. I had no choice. Then I saw the hallway. I've never seen anything like that. 1 out of 2 people just started killing each other. They just decided to kill people.
So The Signal was released in 2007, and it is sort of an anthology film of sorts if you've seen films like VHS, or films in that sort of regards where it's multiple stories taking place within one film, then that's the sort of thing that this is going for. But unlike that film where it's sort of a different story in each segment, this one is 3 different segments all showcasing different points of view of the same event. So the plot is basically there is a signal, go figure, that's sent out into the world through radio, phones, TVs, and it basically causes people to go crazy. If you pay attention to the signal and it gets inside of your head, it causes you to go crazy, makes you very violent, and attacks the people around you, even if they're your friends, family, loved ones, etc. It basically just shuts off that part of your brain that makes you rational and able to distinguish from right and wrong. And this film is not amazing by any stretch. There's a lot of issues with it, a lot of technical issues. I think it has a very clearly low budget. You can tell from the camera work, from the visuals, and from a lot of the acting that it's a lot of unprofessionalism, both in how the film is shot, how the film looks, the performances, like I mentioned. It's not a very well-made film from a technical standpoint. But this film is pretty charming, and I don't know what it was about it. I actually found out about this film from another YouTube channel. If you guys watch a lot of YouTube stuff, his name is yourmoviesucks.com. He's one of the most popular movie-related channels, and I watched an old video of his. It's from like 7 or 8 years ago, where he talks about underrated horror films, and he mentioned this one in it, and it prompted me to watch it. Unfortunately, I could not find it on any streaming services, so I had to pay $3.99 to rent it on Amazon Prime. But I actually ended up really enjoying this movie, and the first segment he said is the best, and I have to agree with him. I do think the first one is the best. It's directed by David Bruckner, who also directed the best segment from the VHS film, the first one, which is the one where the guys go out and they have sort of video cameras and they film themselves talking to girls. And the idea is that they're trying to have sex with these girls on camera and put it out onto the internet as sort of like a Girls Gone Wild, like, found footage type sex thing. It's better than I just made it sound. But anyway, he directed that segment, which I think is the best segment of that anthology horror film. And again, here he does a great job. I think the first segment in this one is the best directed. It has the best performances. It has the best stories and the best characters. But the other 2 segments are a lot of fun as well. The middle portion sort of introduces a little bit more of dark comedy elements, whereas the first segment is sort of just like this straight up horror film. The second one, like I said, has some dark comedy elements to it.
Party guests.
It gets a little surreal, a little bit whimsical, but it's also really funny. And there's also some just really horrific parts in this film. In the second segment, there's this one scene where the guy is sort of torturing this girl, and he's using weed killer to torture her. And by the end of it, he like just continuously sprays her to try to get the information from her. By the end, her face is all deformed. It's all fucked up. It's very visually horrific, and in general, I just think there's some really interesting stuff done in this film. What's really cool is, like I said, you get to see this sort of event take place, and you get to see it from different perspectives. And one of the most interesting aspects of that is you don't just see it from the perspective of people who are trying to survive the attack, but you're also seeing it inside the mind of people who are committing the attack. In the first act, you sort of just see it from the perspective of people who were not affected by the signal and who are just trying to escape. And then in the second and third segments, you get to see it from the perspective of people who are both affected and not affected by it. So I think that's a really interesting, really creative angle to take. Whereas in most films like this, you probably wouldn't get to see the perspective of the people committing the horrific acts and why they're doing it. But in this film, you see that it really messes with their mind. It makes them see things that aren't really there. It just, really fucks with their brains and fucks with what they're thinking and what they're trying to do. And overall, I just think this is a really fun movie. It has a good sense of energy to it, which I really appreciated. It can be a little bit choppy in terms of editing at times, but I think there's a real energy, there's a real charm to this movie. It's very fun, it's very enjoyable. It's one that I think you'd probably get the most enjoyment out of if you watch it with a couple friends. I wouldn't go as far as to call this a beer movie, a movie that's only good if you grab a couple drinks and watch it with friends, but I do think this is a movie that might benefit from having a couple drinks and watching it with some friends. Not that you need that stuff to enjoy it. I watched it by myself, sober, and just had a good time. But I think this movie, like I said, would benefit from a group experience. Overall, it's just a really fun, really entertaining, and really interesting and creative movie. David Bruckner is a director who I've been keeping my eye on for a while now, ever since the first VHS film. I believe he did a segment in VHS 2, but I can't exactly recall which one. But again, he did the best segment in VHS 1. He did the best segment in this movie. His 2018 Netflix movie, The Ritual, I thought was pretty good, especially for a feature film directorial debut. And he has a film coming out, I think, this year or next year, so I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, I don't have a ton to say about this movie. It's just one that I figured I would talk about since it's one that not a lot of people have heard of. The film was released in 2007, so it's around 13 years old by now. And again, the performance is not amazing. It's not incredibly well directed or well acted. The performances can be a little bit bland at times or a little over the top and cheesy. It's hard that they find, a good middle ground in this film. The editing, again, can be a little bit hyper stylized, a little bit too much at times, and give you a little bit of a headache. But as a whole, I think ignoring a lot of the technical elements, there's a lot of fun to be had in this film. I think it's an interesting premise. I think the execution is also very interestingly done. And overall, I just think it's a fun, interesting film, and I recommend that you guys check it out. It's one that, unless you're really curious to see it, you probably don't have to watch it. Again, I don't think it's on any streaming services, so you'll probably have to spend some of your money and rent it. But that being said, I do recommend this film, especially if you're someone who feels like they've seen a lot of horror films, a lot of the popular ones, and you're looking for more of an underground one that's a little lesser known. I do recommend this film. If you're not a fan of the genre, you probably won't enjoy this movie. It's definitely for fans of horror and for people who enjoy films like this. But with all that being said, I don't really have anything else to say about this film. It's a good time. Watch it if you want. I do recommend it. As always, if you liked this video, make sure to click the like button, subscribe to me if you want to hear more from me, and make sure to click that little bell notification button so you do get notified when I post new videos. And as always, I will see you guys on the next episode.